Hi guys, some of you have probably been wondering about the couple times I've mentioned my previous diorama and first layout. Indeed, my Skyloy suitcase layout was my first time dabbling into 009. The first layout project I started was back in 2015. I wasn't even a teen yet, but for a long time I'd always wanted to get into model railways. Such nostalgia, going to model railway shows as a kid and following the trains around the layout like a hawk. I just knew from those moments that I wanted to make my own. The first layout started from getting a Hornby 00 East Coast Pullman set, second hand. It's always a popular choice for new beginners in the hobby to start with an existing train set. What is a surprise is that I started out with DCC instead of DC analog. Analog DC has certainly lasted since the beginning, but digital was chosen as having multiple engines operate by separate commands at once does seem more of a fun experience. Both are great in their own way, and I do like switching between them under certain circumstances. Like for my 009 suitcase layout, being a small one-loop track, analog DC is all it needs. But for my next suitcase layout that involves shunting, having DCC chips added to the locos will help significantly navigate over the few points I'll have, especially with adding stay-alives. For the baseboard, we got the wood and built it together to fit in my large bedroom that I had at the time, with a lipped rim around all sides so that it would stop trains from falling completely off the layout. The layout never had proper legs under it. All it had was a couple of foldable sawhorses, for the reason of it being able to be moved around easier. I don't remember the exact measurements it was. We did use all the track off the original train set and built off there, modifying and adding extra sidings towards the middle, except it was never easy to move. As soon as we added up the hill on one side and the tunnel on the other, the weight of it had already made the layout heavier than it already was, needing both me and Dad to move it. And the reason why it was so heavy to begin with was because we literally used cement as a top layer on the landscape. Yes, you heard that right, cement. Something that both me and my dad decided to do. Not only did it make it much heavier, but obviously being cement and plaster, it was super hard to drill through. I clearly didn't do much research, and my excitement took over. Speaking of taking over, what once started out as a father-son project instantly turned into a mum project. It was basically my mum's layout past this point, seeing all the foolish mistakes we made. She did a lot more research than I ever did, bought a lot of proper supplies, and learnt many techniques she found online that I now use for my own railway modelling. Tinfoil rock faces, coconut fibre hedging, chalk pastel weathering, all learnt that from her. From here, the basic plans on the layout were to have a hill with a cottage and the farmland on one side, metal girder bridges across over the stream going down to the lake at the centre, the station along the front with a small village just behind it, and a tall tunnel on the other side with some woodland on top, and a tall cliff face that cuts space for a small goods yard with the basic loco servicing structures. I didn't really intend it to be based on any location, purely a fictional place that has Sodor and mainland engines alike. The engines I had was a Hornby B12, a Hornby J13, a Lima J50, two Hornby Thomases, one old and one new, a Hornby James, Percy, and Diesel. Both of my Hornby Thomases were absolutely unpredictable with running, and they soon turned to be rubbish. And I remember having a lot of motor burnout troubles with them, swapping out chassis and then checking the decoders, but nothing worked. Well, I guess it did sort of get newer Thomas working okay, but I ended up selling it anyways, along with Percy, James, and very recently Diesel. I remember really enjoying running James and Diesel the most, as they were the most smooth and reliable runners. One interesting thing we did for the layout was to make a tarpaulin cover. Removable metal rods were poked into holes, and then the tarpaulin could be drooped over to protect it from corrosion, because I was, and still now, live in a pretty bad spot where there are really bad areas for where things made of metal can slowly corrode really easily if you do not take good care of things, which I've had plenty of ways to navigate this frustrating problem with covering, sealing, and keeping the tracks clean. Another thing we did for the layout was to add a door to the side of the tunnel mountain so that I could be able to reach the inside for derailed trains or just reach to clean the tracks inside. It certainly did need it to be accessed a lot. For all scenics from here, my mum did most of the work and I more studied and followed along with what she'd do. We managed to get everything relatively finished. The only thing we hadn't done was adding resin water to the stream and lake. They were painted in dark blues all ready to go, but we never really did it as it was new territory for us and we were nervous about potentially ruining all the hard work if we did it wrong. But for what I have to say about the layout, that's about it. How about I show you some of my running sessions I had with the layout back in those old days. That didn't go perfectly well. Now another thing I made after a year I sold my first layout, I wanted to make my small diorama. This was to practice what I learnt to make it by myself. It's not really anything special, it was just made on some thick foam board, spare track, and I built off from there. Again, not basing it on anything real, I laid my track and ballasted, dirt, grass, and everything. Other than the water tower building that I kept from my previous layout, I made all the buildings from scratch. A lot of it from balsa wood as the base, then gluing around it with the different Wills Kit sheets. This is where I got my love for making my own buildings. That really helped me when making buildings for my first suitcase layout. One structure that was fun to make was the wood dock, making balsa wood and fin dowel. I had love for 009 even back then when making this diorama, the original track being pulled up, with just the station platform and a Dolgok styled water tower. The water tower base being made from thin foam sheet, and rock indents were pressed into it from an old paintbrush, with all its bristles removed and the metal rim bent into a rock shape. It's an interesting technique for making stone flooring in particular. Other than that, the diorama is finished, and unlike the first layout, I've kept the diorama to this day. Now, I have to apologize for this not being so much of a tutorial video, as I don't really remember much else about how we went about making it, and I don't think it's really worth talking about methods I've already discussed in my last project. I kept the layout for about 4 years until I decided it was too big to have around our home, since we had moved to a smaller house, and we sold it for quite a decent amount. A controller, my first 2 engines, and all my buildings that were on the layout. Great Waterton Station, I just did not want to let you go. As I said earlier, I have learned a lot from this first layout. A lot of the techniques I go through my previous Scarloey Suitcase Layout Trilogy videos, if you want to go and watch them. I never thought that this layout was perfect. My mum always says that the first layout she likes a lot more, and thinks it's better than what I've made, which I refuse to agree on that. But I must thank for the family effort on that layout, and how it's gotten me to improve in so many aspects, with doing my own soldering, wiring, woodwork, scenery, and all these skills I've learnt because of this layout, and what skills my parents have been able to pass down to me. Other than that, I'll see you down the hill and round the bend.